Hello everyone, welcome back to the Iron Conflict and Frontline channel. Please subscribe and like my videos. Today we're diving deep into an explosive geopolitical review. Pasukan Turkey Memasuki Gaza, Netanyahu, Ketakatan Minta Bantuan Trump, Lanka Barani Erdoğan. Turkey's bold move, Netanyahu's alarm, and how Trump is dragged into this heat. Picture this, the dust of war still swirling in Gaza, the guns momentarily silent, and yet strategic chess pieces are being moved. We're not reviewing a car or gadget today, but rather a dramatic strategic deployment, so think of it like we're reviewing the vehicle of power, influence, and regional ambition. We'll treat this as if it were a deployment. Exterior, the outward show; interior, what's happening behind the scenes; performance, how it's functioning; safety features, risks and safeguards; unique selling points, what's making this move stand out; price, what's the cost; and finally, conclusion. Buckle up. Exterior, on the surface, the move seems bold. Gaza has become the stage and Turkey under Recep Erdoğan has taken center stage. Reports have circulated that Turkish forces might enter Gaza as part of a wider international stabilization plan. Israel's response, publicly firm, they will determine which foreign troops they accept. The exterior is raw, declarations, to public diplomacy, posturing at border crossings, flags, uniforms, trucks, and the flash of cameras. Erdogan is making bold statements about Turkey stepping in to support Gaza's future. Netanyahu, who meanwhile looks on with concern. The exterior is all show of strength and signaling. Turkey, Israel, the US all lining up, each communicating publicly. In simple terms, the outside world sees Turkish ambition in Gaza, Israeli resistance, and American mediation. This is the paint job of the operation. Interior, now let's lean in and examine the interior, what's really happening behind the scenes, the hidden mechanisms, the negotiating rooms, the pressures, and the threads pulling this operation. Inside the move, we see multiple layers: diplomacy, military logistics, regional alliances, internal Turkish motivations, Israeli security calculations, and U.S. strategic interests. Firstly, Turkey under Erdogan has for some time signaled that it wants to play a bigger role in Gaza and the broader Middle East. The reports suggest that Turkey is keen to provide all kinds of support to Gaza: civilian, infrastructural, possibly even military. This ambition runs deeper than just humanitarian aid. It points to political influence and strategic positioning. Internally, Erdogan seeks to show Turkey as a major regional power, not a passive actor. That gives domestic gains national pride, electoral support, and external leverage. On the Israeli side, Benjamin Netanyahu and his government are juggling domestic pressure, international diplomacy, and security concerns. Israel's refusal to allow Turkish troops in Gaza, or at least publicly declaring no Turkish involvement, shows a deep distrust of Erdogan's Turkey, which Israel views as hostile. Inside the Israeli cabinet, there are strategic conversations about which foreign forces to allow, how to secure their borders, how to handle the post-war governance of Gaza. Behind closed doors, Netanyahu, who is likely engaging the U.S. directly, and yes, that means turning to Donald Trump and his team for backing. The U.S., for its part, is pushing a 20-point plan for Gaza, the so-called plan under Trump, and wants to include many regional actors. Inside that mechanism lies the negotiation of troop composition, mandates, chain of command, symbols of sovereignty, and red lines. Israel's red line: Turkish troops cannot be acceptable in Gaza unless Israel approves. On the Turkish side, there is considerable financial, diplomatic, and military appetite, but also logistical constraints, international scrutiny, and risk of confrontation. Internally, Turkey must decide if the cost, political, financial, military, is worth the gain. There is also internal debate in Turkey about how far to go, whether to risk Israeli backlash, whether the U.S. will support this move. Meanwhile, in the background, there are aid trucks, search and rescue teams, rebuilding efforts, media messaging, alliances with Qatar, Egypt, others. e.g., Turkey hosting a meeting of foreign ministers of Muslim states to discuss Gaza's future. So inside the vehicle, everything is being configured, diplomacy gears shifting, military engines revving, but the steering wheels remain hidden behind closed doors. That interior view is long and complicated, but it's precisely where the real power play is happening, beyond the headlines. Performance. How is this move performing so far? The metric of performance includes diplomatic traction, operational possibility, alliance coherence, opposition mitigation, and media narrative. So far, we see mixed results. On the one hand, Turkey has publicly announced willingness to be involved in Gaza's reconstruction and stabilization. On the other, Israel has firmly opposed Turkish military presence in Gaza. Therefore, the performance is shaky. Strong ambition meets strong resistance. For instance, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar said Turkey would have no role in the proposed stabilization force. The U.S. remains open to countries it sees as acceptable to Israel. That means Turkey may be sidelined unless it changes its posture. So operationally, the move is being constrained, the engine is revving, but the road ahead still has roadblocks and red lights. That doesn't mean no progress. Turkey hosting multilateral meetings, engaging in diplomatic push, building narratives. But the litmus test will be when boots are on the ground, if at all, and when the stabilization force is deployed. So performance is early stage, vision is clear, execution uncertain. Safety features. What are the safeguards or risk mitigation mechanisms here? When a country like Turkey attempts to enter a volatile zone like Gaza, many safety features and risks are baked in. On the risk side, escalation with Israel, walking into a war zone, potential backlash, being labeled hostile, being blocked from operations, suffering reputational damage. On the protective side, diplomacy, multilateral frameworks, agreements, alignments with the U.S., staging aid first, deploying civilian rather than fully military personnel, partnering with other states to share risk. For Turkey, one safeguard is proposing a non-combat role or emphasizing reconstruction rather than frontline fighting. For Israel, insisting on control over which foreign forces enter acts as a safety feature for its own security. For the U.S., insisting that all forces be acceptable to Israel ensures some layer of coordination and risk reduction. So the safety features, diplomatic consultation, alliance agreement, phased deployment, aid stabilization rather than sudden mass troop entry, and red lines publicly defined e.g., Israel rejecting Turkish troops. The risk remains high though. Unique selling points. USPs. Why is this move by Turkey unique? What sets it apart? First, Turkey's combining military capability plus diplomacy plus regional ambition in one package. Many states send aid. Turkey is signaling it can also send forces. Second, the move has strong branding value for Erdoğan, positioning Turkey as protector of Palestinians, regional power, key player in Middle East. Third, the narrative of Turkey in Gaza yields big geopolitical leverage, access to reconstruction contracts, influence over post-war governance, playing a balancing role between West and the Muslim world. Fourth, the element of surprise/boldness. Few expected Turkey to push so assertively. Fifth, it tests new frameworks of peacekeeping and post-conflict stabilization, the so-called 20-point plan by Trump, where Turkey could define a new role for itself beyond NATO and Western alliances. So the USB, regional leadership, strategic flexibility, moment of geopolitical branding, access to new theaters of influence. Price now, what's the cost? Even though this is not a gadget you buy, in this analogy the price is the political, military, diplomatic, and financial cost. For Turkey, cost of deploying troops, logistics, casualties, support, cost of possible confrontation with Israel, cost of U.S. and Western backlash if things go wrong. For example, Turkey's involvement may strain relations with Israel, lead to economic consequences, or draw Turkey deeper into conflict. There's also reputational risk. If the mission fails, Turkey's image could suffer. For Israel, cost of negotiating who they allow, cost of potential security leak if foreign troops are admitted, cost of rebuilding Gaza under international scrutiny. For the U.S., cost of managing regional tension, cost of diplomacy, cost of ensuring the stabilization force is credible. Financially, reconstruction of Gaza will cost billions, and any military component adds to that. The price also includes strategic risk. Turkey might overextend. The stabilization plan might fail. This could trigger further conflict. So the price is steep, but the ambition suggests someone thinks the return is worth it. Conclusion: in conclusion, the move by Turkey into Gaza, or at least signaling such a role, is one of the boldest geopolitical plays in the region in recent years. On the surface, we see flags, troops, diplomacy, arms of influence. The exterior is dramatic. But behind that we find complex interior machinery, negotiations, power, plays, red lines. Performance so far is mixed. Ambition is high, execution uncertain, resistance strong. The safety features are present, but the risks are real. The unique selling points are compelling: regional leadership, strategic positioning, branding value. The cost is heavy, though financially, militarily, politically. For our channel's perspective, this is the vehicle we're reviewing. Its design is ambitious, the engine powerful, but the road ahead is full of curves, potholes, and unknowns. For the watchers like you, it's a must-watch story. Erdogan's Turkey may be shifting into new gears. Netanyahu and Israel have to respond. Trump and the U.S. are being pulled back into the front lines of Middle East power dynamics. Whether the move succeeds or stalls will shape the region's future, so stay tuned, keep watching, hit subscribe, and we'll keep tracking this story front line. Thanks for watching.